Hey everybody, ronarray here, and I really love tanky builds. And this league Gladiator showcased a lot of tankiness on a budget with more than skill Ascendancy passive, which provides almost 90% block chance. Combined with some mods on your shield, it would make you almost invulnerable. But what if you will use the same tech for Slayer? And combine it with one of the best clearing skills in the whole game that can wipe enemies with a screen-wide AoE, Frostblades of Katabasis. Well, we will get a total beast of a build to farm any tier 17 map without any issue. Just check it out. The build can literally AFK in tier 17 100% Delirium map with 2 Scarabs of Risk and 7 more rare monsters. It can also run all possible modifiers with as many Scarabs of Risk as you like. It just can't be brick, even if some mods still can annoy you a little. It's also uber viable, especially excelling on bosses like Uber Elder with an amazing AoE reach. But the strongest part of the build is always will be amazing tier 17 mapping potential. And I filmed all of that without +1 frenzy mirrorings. The build has a great scaling potential too on higher budget if you would decide to go for such rings. So in this video I will explain everything that you will need to know about the build and how you can build it yourself. I will also cover different budget versions, from like very cheap one to mirror tier 1, so you will be able to pick one that works exactly for you. Let's go. So how the build works. First off, we are stacking a lot of block chance. We can reach about 65% of basic block, and if we are going to use a Forbidden Flash and Forbidden Flame, we can get a lucky block as well. It will lead us to 88% of block chance, which is completely amazing. All of that together with a modifier on your shield. You can recover life every time that you are blocked, and you can recover about like 5% of life when you block. It's going to make us almost unkillable in maps when a lot of enemies are hitting us with small hits. Moving forward, we're also using Masterful Form, and we're stacking as many frenzy charges as possible. But we're going to receive endurance charges as well. And those endurance charges are going to boost our defenses pretty much significantly. And since we are using Relacash boots, we always will have maximum amount of endurance charges and frenzy charges, making our survivability pretty stable in almost all situations. As an offense, we are going to use Frostblades of Katabasis mostly for amazing AoE, and we're also going to use a Heat Shiver, because Heat Shiver is going to open a lot of additional damage possibilities for us, and is going to provide us with some additional damage based on chill effect and if enemy is frozen, which is very nice and stacks with our huge amount of cold damage. We can also use Yoke of Suffering, and that will pretty much boost our elemental damage, since we already have a lot of possible ailments. And as the last part, we can also stack a lot of instant Leech mastery, such as Claw Mastery, for example, or Leech Mastery. Both of those masters are going to provide huge amount of instant Leech, up to 2000 instant Leech, which is half of our life. So if we are hitting, we can pretty much ignore everything, including damage over time. So let's dive into specifics. First question is pretty much what you must have on the shield. So to feel all of that beautiful survivability, you need to roll a modifier on your shield that will give you recover 3 to 5% of life when you block. It's very important because that's how you're going to regenerate your life while a lot of monsters are attacking you at the same time. Another very important modifier on the shield is chance to avoid elemental ailments. So I would recommend to just roll 2 modifiers like that. If you can get other cool bonuses such as life, additional physical damage reduction, chance to block spell damage, or increased chance to block, that would be nice. However, recovery of life when you block is absolutely necessary for you to feel survivability, and 30% chance to avoid elemental elements is very important as well. So how we are getting a lot of physical max hit? We're pretty much using Strength of Blood, unique keystone. As you can see it here, and it can give us about 37% of physical max hit, which is absolutely amazing. It goes like 2% additional physical damage reduction for every 3% life recovery per second from Leech. We already have a lot of instant Leech, and we're losing only 900 life Leech, but we're receiving crazy amount of physical max hit with it. So I recommend to use Strength of Blood in almost all cases. And you can get it here through Little Pride. Just get Little Pride with warriors under Kaom with a proper number, for example 13, 993 is working just fine, and allocate 1 point to get Strength of Blood into your build. And it's pretty important because it's going to boost your survivability against physical damage significantly. So another very important question is pretty much how we can get enough block to be capped. As you can see with Lucky, we can get 88 and 88 spell block as well. So currently to get your block, you will need to use a few tattoos here. For example, for +1 chance to block attack damage. And you can also take deflection, so just path here, 3 points. And I'm also taking weapon artistry because it's providing some damage. If you don't want or just can't use status, you can pretty much drop weapon artistry like that and take a passive here for block mastery because it's going to cap you for spell block chance. However, if you are looking for optimized option, going for weapon artistry is probably the best right here. And using tattoos is a very great idea too, especially if you want to save a few points here and there. And to pretty much reach 88%, you will need to use jewels such as Forbidden Flash and Forbidden Flame to allocate more than skill. Those could be a little expensive, so if you don't have access to them, you can pretty much just drop it and play with 65% of block. It's still going to feel very tanky. However, if you have enough funds, more than skill could be a very great option here, because it's going to give you almost 90% of block chance, which is absolutely amazing for your survivability. Another important part to our survivability is pretty much reaching the Fortify. And to get Fortify, I'm using Celestial Brace Goliath gauntlets. Those gauntlets can give you melee hits from skills Fortify, which is very cool, and it can give us 9 or even 10 maximum fortification. You can also receive attack speed per fortification bonus, so some damage is going to be applied as well. So those gloves are pretty cool. You can even roll maximum frenzy charge as a corruption here if you have the funds, but just using them can grant us fortification in almost all the cases. And it's going to be more fortification stacks than usual in almost all other builds. The build also has 100% of all elemental elements immunity, so no shock, no sap, no chill, no ignite, and to reach it, we'll need to have a few different things in our build. So first off is Ancestral Vision. It can give us about 50% of chance to avoid elemental elements since our spell suppression is already capped. After that, we'll need to get about 30% of chance to avoid elemental elements on our shield or on our body armor. So both those options are pretty much very good. I genuinely recommend to roll it on shield instead because body armor is more expensive and harder to roll overall. Pretty much 30% here, and we can also receive additional chance to avoid elemental elements from thick skin, so 4% from small nodes and 8% from big one. And that's pretty much 20% here, 30 from the shield and 50 from Ancestral Vision, which leads us to a 100% immunity to all elemental elements. Since we don't have a Tribal Fury for AoE in our 3, I genuinely recommend to take it on your claw. You can roll melee strike skill deals splash damage to surrounding targets, which is a very great idea. That way we can anoint something else on our amulet, for example like Disemboweling, and all of those bonuses can work together a little better. However, if you don't have the funds for melee strike skill deal splash damage because it requires power wounds, you can pretty much just roll Tribal Fury on your amulet. It will just require 1 golden oil and that's pretty much it, so that's a cheaper version if you don't have the funds. However, if you will have more currency later on, I recommend to roll the claw instead and anoint something else on the amulet. But overall, Tribal Fury is a very important part because it's going to boost our clear significantly. Just make sure that you always have Tribal Fury or buff on your claw. So another important question is why we are using Poison and Bleed in our build. So generally, they're using bleed for at least cornered prey and a cool bonus such increased critical strike chance against bleeding enemies. And they're also getting 1 point for poison here. So the main reason why they're even doing it is Yoke of Suffering. Yoke of Suffering is give us 10% increased damage for each type of ailment you have inflicted on your enemies. So generally both poison and bleeding clarified for it. So to make your enemy bleed or make your enemy poison, you pretty much need to have at least a little physical damage on your Frostblades of Katabasis. As you can see, mine here are doing 173 to 400 physical damage, and that's pretty much enough. Just make sure you're not really transition your damage to cold, and you don't have that transformation because it could ruin your bleed and poison chances. So generally just 1 point for poison is enough. However, if you have a lot of intelligence, you can use 1 tattoo here for poison, and that's pretty much a decent option too. However, if you don't have enough intelligence, because I, for example, don't have it, you can spend 1 point here and receive 15% chance to poison on hit. Same goes for bleeding, so just pathing there will give you at least 20% chance to cause bleeding, and with your huge attack speed, like almost 9 attacks per second, most of the enemies are going to bleed consistently, and you're going to receive additional damage from Yoke of Suffering with it. Talking a little more about Yoke, there's a few options to run rare amulets instead. However, if you want to run rare elements, please keep in mind that Yoke is providing your elemental damage can shock, so it gives you at least like 25 stacks of shock, and it provides a pretty decent amount of damage. So every time when you're trying to compare rare elements against Yoke, you need to keep shock in mind. However, if you're looking at very buffed amulets such as that one, for example, they can do significantly more damage than Yoke, like 50% here as you can see, and could be a better option. However, most of such amulets cost multiple mirrors, and if you will have funds for them, you can try to use them. However, I think for the budget, Yoke is an amazing option, and you can just go with Yoke. So another very important question for our DPS is how to get Intimidate and Leech. So currently we are using Little Pride to get both of those. And generally you can run it with like gain 1 rage on melee hit, and it will be pretty much enough to get some rage. You can also get Intimidate there too, so 10% chance to intimidate enemies for 4 seconds on hit. You can also click Find Timeless Jewel, put Little Pride in there, choose Calm because we need Strength of Blood, and Jewel Socket is Vintage there. After that, pick nodes from that list, like Intimidate and Rage on melee hit, and Search. Here is pretty much the list of what you currently need. I recommend to take some that have only 2 of those. For example, anything with lower combined node weight, so only 1 for Intimidate and only 1 for Rage. 2 for Rage will be alright, so for example, that one would be just fine. Personally, I'm using 13993, so that one also provides double damage, which could be very nice. So if you want, you can add double damage to the list just by typing it here and pretty much searching for it as well. So for example, that one would work just fine. And there's a lot of other options that are pretty much working as well. So can the build run no leech or less recovery or anything like that? And generally the answer is yes. Mana cost should be very low if you're using rings with like -2 non-channel skills mana cost. You can also take Thrill of Battle if it's absolutely necessary and you feel like you need it. But since we're already running Clever Thief, we're receiving some gain mana per enemy hit with attacks, gain life per enemy hits with attacks. And we also have a lot of instant leech. It's not a big issue, and both less recovery and no leech at all are possible. However, some of them could be a little more annoying, and Thrill of Battle could be a great idea in such cases because it will lower your mana cost to only 1. So if you feel like you need that, you can pretty much take those 2 points, and 1 mana cost will be pretty much very comfortable in any kind of setup. Moving forward, another important part of our survivability is crit immunity. So generally we need to get that from our body armor. So you take 10% reduced extra damage from critical strikes per endurance charge. It's probably one of the strongest options for our build, because even without rings we'll have at least 9 charges here. And 9 charges together with body armor like that is going to give us 90% reduced extra damage from critical strikes bonus. So another important question is how to fix resistances, especially if you're going to run a different build or if you're on a budget. So in that case, I recommend to take Cloth and Chain because it can provide you 16 to all elemental resistance, and that's your first step. Your next step is pretty much ensure that you're using one with nature for even more resistance. After that, you can swap your bandit to the Lyra instead of killing all. It will give you 15% resistance, that's more. And the last part, you can take your body armor, and instead of rolling Grace have 27% increased aura effect, you can just roll like 15 or 17 resistances to all elements. All of that together is going to help you a lot to get resistances even if you're on a budget. And moving forward and talking about Iron Reflexes. Iron Reflexes are pretty much a very good bonus, which can provide a lot of armor, and it will just change your approach to defenses. However, choosing between huge evade chance and 71% is really huge evade chance, I honestly think that Iron Reflexes are just not good enough. They already have a lot of physical max hit, and it will feel pretty much alright with you because you already have Strength of Blood, which provides a lot of physical max hit. So I don't really feel like getting Iron Reflexes are necessary, and that's pretty much it. The only change that I would do, so if you want to go for Iron Reflexes and you just hate evasion, you can take that point, and you will need to change your defensive skill from Steel Skin to pretty much Molten Shell, because with Molten Shell, Iron Reflexes are providing a lot of additional defenses. Otherwise, I can see a lot of point in that, and I will probably just use a normal Steel Skin setup in the same fashion as I'm doing it in the most part of my video. So another important question is pretty much how we can cap our chaos resistance, and usually Light of Minion is working so well for it. If you are going to use or run any kind of boss, for example, you can swap the Light of Minion here to pretty much the Light of Minion with just cold damage. So if you will go for something like that, it can give you a decent amount of damage. So for example here, it should give you about 14% of combined DPS. However, while we are running maps, I think running Light of Minion for chaos resistance is just a better idea. And moving forward, very important part of the builds that are going to help you with DPS significantly, it's pretty much your tincture. Because at tincture you can get increased elemental damage with melee weapons, and melee weapons damage penetrates 27% of elemental resistance. All of that will lead you to like 70% of additional combined DPS. So I recommend to use the tincture over other options, such as Progenesis, for example, or any other flask, because tincture is giving a lot of damage here, and you will feel much more comfortable fighting bosses while you have tincture up. So the only modifier that can make it a little harder for us is pretty much players have -% to all maximum resistances. That modifier could be a little annoying, especially if you just roll it on the map and not get it from the Risk Scarab, because that way you're going to receive about -37% of maximum resistances if you have a stacked Atlas, and it could lead to just a situation when your survivability will be lowered. However, such modifier could be easily completed. You just need to keep your distance and pretty much be a little more careful in the map. Same goes for player marked for death, but that one is not that bad in my opinion. So what guts you need to use? Generally, I recommend to run with Soul Lunarrays, and you can even get avoid projectiles if you need. However, additional physical damage reduction and movement speed just feels great. And as a minor god, most of the time I just run Soul of Groot Cool, because that way we can receive cool bonuses for physical as well. However, if you really care about chaos, you could go for Shikari, and if you really bother with just staying in one place, you can go for Tukahama as well. For solo bosses, I can recommend Lunarrays, however it's not too necessary, and you can just run Ugars with Lunarrays instead of Solaris as well. So talking about Ascendancy, here I think everything is very obvious. We are going for Bane of Legends, Headsman, and Masterful Form. The last part is Brutal Fervor, because even if our Leech is instant, we are still considered like we are leeching, so reduced damage is working, and we will still have over Leech consistently. So getting a quick overview for the items that I used. The very important part here is Celestial Braces, because it can give you both Fortification and maximum frenzy charges if you will get a corrupted version for higher budget. Imperial Claw is just basic, you need to roll for attack speed, critical strike chance, and critical strike multiplier. Hits can be evaded is a very important part here, because it's going to make you hit all your attacks. So for the shield I already mentioned that, chance to avoid elemental elements, recover life when you block, and additional physical damage reduction. For the Relic Impatience boots, I recommend to just go for like chance to suppress spell damage if you want to save a few tattoos. Increase maximum life could be a nice bonus on top, but if you don't have it, it's not too critical. For the Hit Shiver, I recommend to just take +1 maximum power charge or corruption with life. On your body armor, you will need to roll chance to suppress spell damage, physical damage reduction, and if possible, just get as much health as possible. Also, you take reduced extra damage from critical strikes per endurance charge is a very great bonus as well. As implicit, I recommend to just roll critical strike multiplier for attack damage, because that way you are going to receive a little more damage here and there. And for the rings, you pretty much just go with basic rings with critical strike multiplier, some intelligence, life, and non-channeling skills have -2 mana cost. The same for the second one, but if you can add some chaos resistance on top, it would be even better. So as a belt, you can use Arn's Anguish or Mageblood. So both of them are working good. I'm mostly preferring Mageblood because of reduced effect of curses on you during effect, which is in my opinion kinda good. However, Mageblood is not mandatory, and you can pretty much run a different belt such as Aaron's Anguish for example, or even a Headhunter if your stats will allow it. To compensate for the resistances, just look at the timestamp, what to do with the resistances on a budget. Also, since the budgets for almost all players are different, I covered different versions in my path of building. As you can see here, I have a multi-mirror version, main version, high budget. That's pretty much the one that I'm playing in the video, and I filmed all my gameplay with that version. Also medium version with no Mageblood, and starting budget version, which should have no tattoos. So just click the loadout that's working for you if you're interested in that approach. And path of building is in the description as usual. The rest of the questions is pretty much covered in the video itself. Check out the timestamps for it. So talking about your 3, here it's very basic. You just need to take Defiance and some tattoos here, and you also need Attack Mastery for non-wild strike skill, target one additional nearby enemy. Additional block and bonuses such as Disciple of the Slaughter are pretty much basic. And after that you're just going to the right, taking Bleed options, Cornered Prey because it's very good. Taking Cold Mastery here because you're going to freeze enemies consistently. Don't forget to take Thick Skin because you're going to receive enough chance to avoid elemental ailments from it. You also will need to use a lot of basic tattoos like that for spell suppression, which is totally fine. And going to the top, you will need to reach Cloves of the Hawk. Don't forget both masteries for Leech's instant here and here. And you also can use at least 2 clusters. So in one, I recommend to take Gladiator's Fortitude because it's some life and a decent amount of damage. And in second, it just Prodigy's Defense, because Prodigy's Defense is going to help you a lot to reach your cap for block chance. That's pretty much it, and you don't need to take anything else. Another important moment that if you will pass up there for Force of Nature, you can take a Mastery for a huge bonus of DPS, like hits have 25% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. So if it's possible, just go there. And don't forget to take all possible frenzy charges in all 3 places. That's pretty much it. So that's been my first Blades of Katabasis Slayer build. It can pretty much clear all tier 17 with all mods pretty relaxed, and it can also run all Uber bosses and clear all content in the game. The build itself been very enjoyable, so I'm probably going to push it a little forward myself. Thank you very much for watching and feel free to subscribe for more RPG content. See you next time. ronarray out.